This is the Joy of Paintball, and I'd like to give a special thanks to my supporters on Patreon. Christopher Harry, Reese Tigert, Colt Wallace, and Edric Alvarez. Thank you so much for your support. The Joy of Paintball also brought to you by Productive Procrastination Productions. Produced by Pipe Dreams and Wishful Thinking. Sound engineers, my kids banging on the door asking for dessert. Also sponsored by free things like caffeine and spell check. The Joy of Paintball made available by viewers like you. Welcome to the Joy of Paintball. I'm Clint Riddle. Today I had an amazing guest. You might know him from Paintball Passport. You might know him from Infamous. You might know him from Aftermath. But more recently, you might know him from Dynasty. Today I had Joe Barrett on, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention how much of a saint this guy is. He shared so much with me. He had amazing stories. He told me about his world travels. He told me some paintball stories. Told me some music stories. We talked about all sorts of art, like all sorts of art. We had a huge connection over Van Gogh, which was a great story to hear. We talked about, you just gotta listen. We talked about all sorts of stuff. So thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much to my my patrons from Patreon. Thank you for listening. All right, here is Joe Barrett. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna throw that on. This isn't live. I'll go edit it and post. I'll do a separate intro for you there.
Cool.
But dude, I'm Clint, by the way.
What's up,
Thanks
Clint?
for doing this, man.
Yeah, dude, nice to meet you. I'm Joe.
Dude, we all know who you are, man. You're freaking killing it. And like, just top dog in the news these days. How's that been?
Crazy, dude. Absolutely crazy. Yeah. It's I don't know. I think, like the Archie Monomayers and all those guys, they're used to big moves and stuff like that. But, I still feel like it was only yesterday that I was fucking 13 playing D3. And it's wild to, be like, holy shit. Like, Pro was one thing, but damn, like, being on Dynasty, it's still kind of, I wake up each day like, I can't believe that fucking happened.
Yeah. I bet, dude. I feel that way whenever, I scored pros like you and anyone else for this thing, so I couldn't even imagine playing with them, or dude, I saw the your post of the little care package they got you.
Oh yeah, dude,
that was freaking killer, man.
I know, that's been literally the last 2 hours of my day. I got back from work lunch with one of my work buddies and saw that huge box on the front porch with another one on top, and I was like, oh my god, it's finally here. And it took like an hour to pull all the stuff out one by one and see everything, and then another hour to sort everything, put all the new stuff in my gear bag, put the old stuff in storage, put together the flex the way I wanted. So it's been just sitting in the living room like when you're a little kid, on Christmas, and you unbox your Xbox or whatever, and just it's amazing,
dude. Yeah. So, let's get into it. The reason I asked you on, so the way I approach my podcast, I figure everyone does. Not everyone. A lot of people have done paintball podcasts where, hey, tell me your story, how you got into paintball, all that. Which is, if you want to do that, that's fine. But really, I like to focus on the creative folks.
Yeah.
Or people who are creating stuff. Mm-hmm. And your podcast has really stuck out to me. For those of y'all that don't know, Joe has a podcast called Paintball Passport, which is a really cool concept of letting pro players tell their travel stories. And, dude, I love those kinds of podcasts that have a theme throughout. Yes. So where people are able to know what they're in for when they come to your show. So what real quick, what made you pull the trigger on that as far as doing a travel podcast?
Yeah, I guess, a lot of things went into it, and it kind of felt like it was a long time coming. I definitely am more into like the long form conversations, like a Joe Rogan show, than an interview style. And there's some really great podcasts out there, but like you said, most of them are on like the background or career of the player, or like the sport itself. But my favorite niche in paintball is the international travel aspect of it. Like, I won't say it's the only reason I wanted to go pro, but it was a big thing early on, and it's a story I've told many times where, like, I was already into speedball and loving it, but then I started reading those, like, early PB2X articles from, like, the veterans in their heyday, the Matty Marshalls and those guys, and they were just, like, half the story would be about, their performance in Paris or Amsterdam or whatever, but the other half would be, like, the week of backpacking and cool things that the team did to bond together in another world. And I became obsessed with that because I've always wanted to like travel the world. As a little kid watching Discovery, I was like, that's what I'm gonna do someday. And then I realized, oh my God, if I do get good enough at this sport, unlike many other sports, then people will fly me around the world. So I guess to sum up the story, I've been a traveling pro player now for like 8 years, and I started going to international events back in 2012. So this has been my whole life, over a decade now. It's been my lifestyle, and I kept thinking, I'm like, occasionally you hear someone share a tidbit on, you're just getting back from Europe, on one of the other big podcasts, but that's not, they didn't really go into the stories of it. They're just like, oh, you're back, okay, tell me about the team you're going to. And I was like, man, how are we not talking about these stories, like the interesting lifestyle?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I listen to PTG quite a bit, and, I would listen to Carl's when he was doing his, and I can't remember who had Ryan Moorhead on. I don't even know if he was on a podcast, but I saw, like, him running with the Bulls, like him and Chad George, and I was like, we need to hear more about this. Yeah. So, like, well done, sir, on like pursuing this. I think I thoroughly enjoy it. I've been binging it, like I told you earlier, but I'm in the middle of you and Ronnie Dizon's podcast right now, and loving every minute of it, dude. It's such a cool concept. So thanks for making that happen and sharing it with the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and I'm really happy you enjoy it because something in my head when I made it was like, I'm not going to make this to become this big business or like that. Like, I want to do it because me and my travel friends, like Harrison Fry, we share our wild adventures all the time. Like, how was that trip? Tell me about the volcano you hiked or the crazy beach you surfed or whatever. And all the time I'm like, man, I love hearing these stories, but it almost sucks that they're wasted on just me. And like, if more divisional players heard this, maybe they'd take it all the way. Or if more non-paintball players heard this, maybe they'd go, oh, wow, that is a cool sport. Like, you can live a cool lifestyle doing that. Maybe I'll try getting into it. So a big thing was, like, I would do this anyways. Like, I'm happy to crack a beer and just talk for a few hours with my friends. And it's so much fun that, like, I'm going to do it anyways, so it never feels like work. And I don't know how many people tune in or whatever. So when you do say you tune in and listen, like, I'm grateful because it's just cool that I'm happy that other people enjoy this more than just myself.
Dude, I mean, yeah. I have a feeling there's a lot out there. I don't know if you look at like your numbers or anything, but
nope.
That's probably smart. That's good. But like, who was I listening to? Someone threw out like an idea for you to like have someone. I think it was Hickey.
Yeah, the very last person I had on, Jimmy Hickey.
Yeah. The idea of like people calling in, and I was like, that's brilliant. Like all of this the whole time. I think that's my like measure of a good podcast, especially with paintball, is like how connected I feel to the conversation.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm like listening to these, I'm thinking of stories of like me and my buddies when I played college ball, so we didn't travel out of the country or anything. Mostly just in Texas. That's where I'm from. So,
Nice.
you know, but I'm like relating these stories, like some of the shenanigans and that stuff. I think is really what most people can connect to. But the and also the just I don't know the potential, especially for like these kids, you know, coming up now, they're able to see. I mean, potentially see whatever. You know, with Ronnie, he's throwing out vlogs about what he's doing, and then with Instagram and all that, we're able to see just how vast everything is.
Yeah.
Just living with it.
Yeah, it's like
go.
when you're a 13-year-old kid, you kind of, once you get out of the box, you don't put it down for a few days. So
Yeah, you get to put any paint through it yet?
No, I literally just unboxed it, so I will this weekend.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, I didn't want to get you off the topic there.
It's all good. I'm a nerd just through and through, so I see the gear. Like, I was looking through all the little things you got. Like, man, they hooked him up hardcore. So.
They did. They are awesome. But you know, I did like that idea that Jimmy put out there, and I do want to try more things like that. I guess a difficult thing I'll say is it's not that I am finding it difficult to find guests to come on my podcast, because after this long playing in pro and in the national game, like, you kind of know everybody who's been around, so I can think of all the guys who are like the constant travelers, and it's not that big of a group, but like I kind of know all those dudes, and I've already had most of them on my show, so now a lot of the ones that I'm trying to get are like either retired guys who, like the guys who used to do it, like you know, Paxson, Lasoya, those guys, Matty Marshall, or like guys like, you know, you just mentioned him, Ryan Moorhead, or like my new teammate Blake Yarber, who, you know, these guys are the ones who used to constantly travel, but these guys have like families and young kids now, so it's not like they don't want to come on and do it, but every week I'm just like, hey, you got free time? Can I schedule you? And they're like, man, it's hard to actually like schedule us, because we got, you know, 1-year-old babies, and, you know, wife's not sleeping, so it's kind of I'm going to let you know when it's going to happen, and you just got to be ready. And I'm like, all right. So it'd be hard for me to do like this Jimmy's concept, because with that, it's like, okay, Wednesday, 7:00, be ready for your call-ins. But, you know what I mean? Yeah. But for me, it's been very like, it's not like I've done this the same day every day. Like, sometimes it's a Wednesday, sometimes it's Tuesday morning, sometimes it's Monday night. It's just kind of whenever the guest says that they're available, I'm flexible for them.
Yeah, I feel that. That's I think that's kind of until we reach. Well, also the fact that it's not live, because you don't do yours live, do you?
Nope.
Yeah, so I think that makes it seem like that easier to navigate, and it is easier to navigate. So
true.
I mean, you don't have to do the call-in thing. I don't know, but what's up?
How? Maybe just like pre-asked questions rather than them actually being live on it.
Yeah, like maybe or like shenanigans, like someone like, you know, maybe like, hey, like, do you have a Discord, or you could even throw it out on your Instagram, like, hey, DM me like a just a bullet point of what you want to talk about, and whatever like sounds cool, whoever like sells it the best, you could call in or whatever, or even like just up front, like do like 10 in a day. That sounds like a lot, but like, I don't know, I listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, it's your stuff. I don't want to, I'm not trying to.
I like it.
Like,
I'll take input. Yeah.
Like, there's this silly, it's a radio show actually on NPR called Away with Words, and it's all about like the etymology of words and the history of words. It's a different kind of nerdy, but they let people just call in and like leave a message, you know, like a voicemail of like what went on, and so then you're just having to like listen and see what's going on. But I don't know how you do that these days without unless you want to give people your phone number, which I don't suggest. But
yeah,
especially now that you're Dynasty, I bet like all sorts of folks come out of the woodwork.
Well, it can't get any worse than my other job. I'm a retail sales manager for a gummy company, and the call
Is that-
app we were using is you've probably heard about the Lumi Labs.
Is Hallberg's
Yep.
in on it too, or whatever?
Yep.
Okay. I just heard you
Exactly.
mention it earlier. Sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's cool.
yeah.
And it's cool that you know his name. And I also see you're wearing an Aftermath long sleeve from that era, from those 2 years we were on, was that logo style before it became ASG. So that's cool that you're, a
I
fan.
did do a little nod, man. I did some research. So,
Yeah.
no, we may have crossed paths when I got this.
Really?
Did you play the Astra event?
I did.
Okay, yeah. So I did a piece about Thomas Kim that year.
Oh.
And I went to go give it to him at that event, thinking he'd be there, and he, I don't know what was going on, but he couldn't make it to that. So I just gave it to Hinman. I was like, hey, could you just put this in his hands? I don't know when I'll see him again or have the opportunity to see him. And so he did that, and I have a little bit of a history with, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name, Mark Johnson.
Oh, okay. He's the man.
Yeah, he's cool. And so I was already talking to him, told him what was going on, and he's like, hey, Mike, and like sort of introduced me. And so then Hinman gave me this, and it's like,
Nice.
all right.
So are you the
Yeah.
guy that made it looks like a stained glass image
Yep.
of... Man, that is so
Sweet.
cool. I thought that looked sweet, and that was very kind of you to do that. He's a stained glass guy. I know it was like his mother's business, so I'm sure that meant the world to him. But also, very small world that I probably would have been right there at that picnic table when you gave that to Mike for him.
Yeah, I was trying to think. It was either you or I don't know if he plays anymore.
Pinky? Robert Ruiz?
I don't know his nickname. Another white dude. Corey? Not Corey. Gosh. He used to do like
Cody?
a fitness.
Cody.
Yeah, so
Cody Rich. He was a
Who
guest
played-
here sometime.
who played with the dope golden green Adrenaline Lux? Not you, I'm assuming.
Well, I have.
No,
Yes, but-
that's pretty sick. But no, this was the Adrenaline
Lux?
one.
Maybe it was
So,
him.
It
Yeah.
had a real Halo vibe to it, the like golden olive green, and I was like, man, that was cool. So, anyway, yeah. Well, cool, man. I don't want to like steal from you, but I do want to hear like some stories. So I'll try to direct it towards art because
You can steal from me. Yeah.
well, so my whole thing is I'm an artist. I'm an art teacher. That's my job that pays some bills, and I just love hearing like people's responses to art in any fashion. So I know you mentioned like music was kind of a cool thing, but I'd love to hear like some of your, if you have any like encounters with art or like monuments, just on your travels, like stuff that stuck out to you.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I'd love to share that. I wouldn't say I'm like the most into art person. It's not like I do any art myself, is what I mean. But I do appreciate art. Like if I see a painting that really like draws my attention, like I go to music festivals, and if there's one that really captivates me for a night, and I'm thinking about it till the next day, I'm like, man, that would be sweet on the living room. Like if it's not just like oh that's cool and I walk away. Normally, if it's still there, like the last day, I'll buy that painting. So
Sick.
yeah, so I've got a room of like really cool. I don't know. It's kind of more like the psychedelic type art, like a lot of sacred geometry and stuff like that.
I think I've seen these. Have you posted them before?
Yep.
Yeah, like the sort of like I don't know what the word is, but they respond to like neat black lights or.
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of them are.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And my friend and longtime teammate from a few different teams, Tim Brusselback, is a painter. So
No way.
Yeah, you should have him on the show.
You're the second person that I've had on tell me that. Colt Roberts told me like he's a big D&D guy.
Yep.
He was like, you need to have him on, but he didn't mention anything about art. He's a painter, huh?
He's a painter. It's weird he wouldn't mention that on something like this because Colt plays D&D with him. I occasionally will play with Tim. I'm at his house, but I'm not in that group. But yeah, anybody who's seen Tim's background of the room that he plays those games in, he has like probably 50 different beautiful paintings that, he might have spent a day on, he might have spent months on.
Okay. All right. He's on the list.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to him.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah, I have some of his art too. And when I travel, which is, there's a lot of things that'll draw you when you travel. And I mostly gravitate towards like connecting with locals and like meeting the people and trying to immerse in part of their culture. But normally like that first day or so when I get to places, I do like to go to the monuments, the statues, and what would you call them, like historical landmarks of that city, if it's a city. You're not going to get that in like a village or something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So have you done like I don't know how you say it, not the Seven Wonders, whichever ones exist, have you like marked those off your list?
Not.
You know what I mean? Sorry, that was kind of vague.
Do you mean like the pyramids and things like those?
Like the pyramids, yeah, but I know that they kind of fall into like two categories, don't they? Like, because there's the 8 or the 7 wonders of the world, which are like, I think one of them's like Atlas, which is, I don't know, like mythical, or like the giant sculpture of some human. I don't know.
Oh,
I should really know this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know more about like the nature ones because I used to live next to Niagara Falls, so I know those like But I think you're talking about the list of like man-made wonders, like.
I think the Colosseum and things like that fall into it. Yeah. Okay.
I've been to the Colosseum. Honestly, I don't know what else is on that list. Maybe I've seen another one and didn't know because I'm not super familiar with that list.
Okay. Sorry, cut you off. So you go to these villages and check out whatever monuments are there. How much of maybe we replace the word art with like aesthetic, like or vibe, however you want to say it. Like you go into. Have you been to Bali or Indonesia?
Not Bali, but yes, Indonesia.
Okay, so I figure I've never been, but I have a feeling you jump off that plane and it is immediate like culture shock or somewhere like that.
Oh yeah.
What are the things that you pick up on first when you like go into a totally new culture?
Yeah. Well, I like the word you use, aesthetic, because everywhere you go looks for the most part different than everywhere else. Some things are pretty close. Like a lot of like Latino cultures look similar walking around, like because of the architecture of those buildings, whatever. And quite a few places in Europe look the same as other Europe. And then even like really big cities in a lot of other places will look similar to our big cities, other than like where you get the buildings that are from hundreds and hundreds of years ago mixed in, or like the ancient churches and cathedrals and temples type thing. But yeah, I like to notice like the architecture and like the style, it's kind of like art to me, because like in some places you'll see these patterns and you're like, oh, I already know that looks very Aztec, that looks like an Aztec pattern, that's very part of their culture, and you see it like in their walls, in their clothing, stuff like that, I'm sure there's tons others you could think of that are very, if I showed you a picture of that pattern right now, you'd be like, that's Egyptian, or that's,
Yeah, that's totally art, man. Like, art is, like, my students will be like, man, everything's art, Mr. Riddle, whenever they're trying to, like, make their crappy art pass. And I'm like, yeah, not everything's good, but, like, to their point, everything could be art, and definitely, like, there is design and artistic intent that goes into a lot of stuff. Like those patterns are, I mean, that's kind of like the foundation of how we get to where we're doing painting, like realistic paintings and all that, or the cool designs that we do now. It all stems from history.
Yeah.
You something triggered in my mind when you said something looks Aztec. And have you looked at Inuit art at all?
Um, is okay. I'm gonna
Like
sound
Alaskan,
stupid. That's
Eskimo
Alaska.
art.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say Eskimo type Native American.
Yeah.
Some because I remember going through like this little like this woman who was retired from Alaska in like this small middle of nowhere town in Oregon, and she had like her, she's finally doing her passion project. It was like a little, what do you call that? Like, what's somebody's little shop for art? Their studio.
Oh, it could be a studio or a
Yeah,
yeah, a
with
shop.
like
It's
things
fine.
posed around the shop. So yeah, like her own little art studio. I'd say half or more of it looked very Inuit, like lots of like, the killer whale. You see a lot in their stuff, whether it's carved
Yeah.
into wood or painted. So I saw a lot of that.
It just like made me think and it is the same continent, so I don't know I don't know. I'm getting weird on this, like trying to connect the two cultures now. Like maybe some of the art carried on between whenever they crossed, what is that, the Bering Strait?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with me today, man. I'm like geeking out.
No,
hard.
it's not weird. And I like the tangent, so geek
Yeah.
out, bro.
No, but yeah, it like just dawned on me. There's some similarities in that. But anyway, so all right, let's see. What was the biggest like shock culture for you?
Oh man. I mean, probably the first time I went to Thailand, because that was my first really big international trip. This was way
Yeah.
back in like 2012, I guess. Like I had been to
Okay.
Canada for CXBL. I don't really count that. I had been to like Mexico before playing there for like, the cruise that stops in Cancun, whatever. But the first time I went for a few weeks to Thailand, that city, it is a city, but the big city of Bangkok is gargantuan compared to Buffalo, New York, where I'm from.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure. Yeah.
a lot more like neon and like futuristic looking stuff and crazy traffic with, anything from sports cars to like rickshaws and tuk-tuks in it.
Gosh.
And then the spaces between Bangkok and other places I went, like Pattaya, were like, I had never seen like tropical jungle like that.
Dude, all right.
The views are just epic. They're so stunning, and you pass like these giant, gold Buddhist temples that are huge, like, 100-foot tall Buddhas in front of like gigantic temples, and it's like, that thing is 1,000 years old. It's way
Yeah.
older than anything here in my country. So that stuff blew me away.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember I was lucky enough to go to Italy when I was like 16. And at that point I was kind of into art, but they're telling me, we're walking down the streets of Florence, and they're like, Michelangelo designed these window sills or whatever, like the architecture. And I was like, I was like touching the window sills, like trying to like get whatever I could from like, oh my gosh, so cool. Like, this thing's hundreds of years old, not even like, And then what do you think's more culture shock? Like going to see that, or like coming home to, I don't know what Buffalo's like, but I'm assuming pretty suburban.
Yeah, it's a small medium city with a lot of suburbia around it. Like it's very sprawling. So
Yeah.
my neighborhood was your classic cookie cutter, just endless straight lines of neighborhoods and houses and stop signs and a school at the end of it, and not much going on there, right? Like really not a lot of like visually appealing sights. You're not going to sit there and be like, wow, look at this this view during sunset, because the sunset's just setting over like a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And then when you see it on the beach in Pattaya, and there's like these mountain things out in the bay, like out in the water, and palm trees, and monkeys further down the beach just kind of walking around stealing people's cans, and like when you see stuff like that, you're like, man, this is
Where am I?
way different, so
Yeah.
otherworldly.
That's crazy, man. All right.
Yeah. And I'll say it's culture shocking seeing it, you know. It's culture shocking walking down the street and seeing like food carts all over the place with like birds in cages or like weird fish you've never seen or like crickets and tarantulas and caterpillars that are either like deep fried or chocolate dipped. And just like, and that's food that you can just buy, you know, and that's food there. Bugs. It's shocking, but I think it's 50-50. Like half of the shock is when you return, because that's the point where, like, some of these places I'd rather stay there. I feel like they fit my lifestyle better, where I resonate with that type of stuff. But then when I come back, I am reverse shocked and reminded of the things that I'm very grateful for, and that's always like first world amenities, which are actually luxuries that over half the world don't get, you know,
like
air conditioning, a toilet that flushes, toilet paper, water that you can drink out of your sink.
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest one.
Street lights that don't go out like once or twice a day from like fluctuating, you know, just power outages that sweep. Yeah, just stuff like that.
Dude. Yeah. I forget about that sometimes. Just how good we have it. I bet people make the most of what they got.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like in third world or second. I don't know what. Is it a third world country?
Yeah, third world would be like the places that are really poverty, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'd say there's even parts of first world countries that can have third world type situations, you know.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, let's get into these art questions. I gave you a few questions ahead of time. There was one that was a little more playful. What posters did you have on your wall growing up? Were you that kind of kid? Did you have like...
Yeah, for sure. So I had every poster that you could think of that would come in like a Faceful or a PB2X, like the ones that you could rip out from the binding and it unfolds into 4 spots. Mm-hmm. I had that big poster that I took from my local field of the JT model from back in the early 2000s. Her name was Bon.
Bon.
Anybody who was around in like, I don't know, up until 2000, maybe 5 would remember this poster of this girl who probably didn't even play paintball, but she was just a JT model holding like this absolute piece of shit silver JT gun that they sold in Walmart for a bunch of years. Mm-hmm. Like a Triumph or some horrible mechanical gun. Like, shout out JT.
A spider, but
yeah, they're my sponsors now. I love JT, but back in the day, it wasn't just them. There were all these like kind of like made for Walmart guns, which was cool because that's how you at least get people to dip their toe in the sport. But you had a lot of these guns like from Piranha and I guess Spider and all these that were like, I remember me or my friends would have them. One of us would have each one of the guns, and that with with CO2 on it too. Like, these guns were just awful back in the day.
Yeah, but, I remember this poster now. Is she in like a tank top or something?
Yep, like a white tank top. Yeah, like face the other way. Yeah. Yeah. She was beautiful though, and so I had that, and then I had there were a couple of these really like cool Bob Long posters with like the outline almost like it was like a coming of like the Dragon Intimidator or things like that. And then I always thought Angel had dope posters too, because Angel used to like, I don't want to say like sexualize the sport or whatever, but like other things would, like they'd have their dope top player like a Max Lundqvist sitting there with like the gun in his lap, and then like a beautiful Swedish girl or two behind him, and it was like they just looked like rock stars, So I had those all over my wall, and then every space between was filled with just like a picture that I'd rip out of a magazine, like just a little normal picture, but it would be like whatever, Dynasty or the Naughty Dogs or whatever, and my entire room, every square inch from when you walked in, was squares or big rectangles of paintball pictures.
Nice. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what is a piece of art that stopped you in your tracks? And this could be architecture, it could be, uh, it could be a painting at a festival, or even like the I don't know what kind of festivals you go to, but like the visualizations that the band does or stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I already know instantly. So I do like art enough that I'll go to like museums and stuff like that when I travel. If it's a museum that I already know I want or I hear it's amazing, I'm going to that thing. And some countries even have like these welcome passes where you pay and it gives you like free bus and transportation around that city. Like Germany's very good with this. And included with that is just free access to all the museums in that city, so you can really see stuff.
Dude.
So the museum I most wanted to see when I first started playing the Europe events, and I've been back there a few times now, is the Van Gogh Museum. Like, he's my favorite artist, hands
Is that
down.
in the Hague or whatever?
It's
The,
in,
like.
it's in Amsterdam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like not too far from like the dead center of the downtown. There's this big, beautiful like grass park that leads up to like I think now it's a train station. It used to be a church, and there's the sign in front that says "I Amsterdam," and then across from that is the Banksy Museum, and then the Van Gogh Museum.
Holy shit!
And
That's a freaking lineup, dude.
dude, it's
Two
a
of
hell
the
of a
biggest
park.
names to ever go. Like, add Picasso, and then you have like the trifecta.
Hmm.
So you like Van Gogh then?
I love Van Gogh, and
This
so
is
you
great.
you go to this museum. You go to that park area early in the morning, so you have time to see all this because there's so much stuff, and the park is gorgeous too. And everything in the Van Gogh Museum, like it's in floors from the beginning stage of his life to as he started to like, kind of like digress mentally. Like I didn't know if he was just going crazy or from the looks of it also going through like some psychedelic experiences, but you can
Well,
see his art get more and more like weird and abstract.
how
And
nerdy
it's-
do you want to get right now? Because
Let's
I'm
get
not
dirty.
joking. I love this dude.
Let's
So,
get dirty.
Yes, he had like there was some mental instability in some areas, but and I think that fed into some other decisions he made that weren't the greatest. But he also like throughout his life would starve himself in
Oh.
order like not like I he would rather pay for paints and supplies because his brother was fronting all the money for him. And so I think he was very passionate and would like I could eat or I can buy some more paint. And so I'm going to buy some more paint because I don't want to screw my brother over. And they loved each other. But he also had a really strong relationship with absinthe. So that that helped.
Yeah.
But like he also there were a few times where he would eat his paint.
Oh wow!
And
Not good for you.
one of his colors was chrome yellow, which is like toxic.
Oh
So
my god!
anyway, I'm sorry. I could talk about him and paintball all day. Like this is
That's
gonna be a
cool.
long one if we keep going on this track.
Wait, hey, it can be long. I'm in no rush. It's
Yeah.
6 o'clock here. Work's over. I knew we were doing this, so no
Right on.
big. And I love Van Gogh, and I think I like his art style. I like how he creates a lot of motion. Like it looks like the people, even in just like a landscape that are like sweeping in their front of their house, it looks like they're sweeping because he's good at like making the brush strokes that look like movement, or like his wheat. His fields of wheat always look like wind is going through it. So I really like his style, but I like Van Gogh because of his story. Like Van Gogh was a broke, starving artist and never actually made it. I think he sold like one piece of art in his entire life, and then committed suicide, if I recall. So like,
The verdict's
or-
out on that, but yeah.
but just came a sad ending, and in his life, at the end, he's probably thinking, I failed. And now we all see him as one of the greatest artists of all time. So I just like that, that's really cool to me that I don't want people to die before they realize they've made it or whatever, but it kind of proves to you that like you don't know the mark that you're going to leave on people or on the world just in your day to day right now. You really don't know. And even when you die, you really, I guess, don't know, because you could have died with the belief that you had failed, and then people could see things differently than how you had been seeing your reality in your own lens.
Yeah, very much so. That's heavy, dude. Do you watch Doctor Who?
No, I don't.
Okay. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Okay, so he's this time traveling doctor. But it's a TV show, sorry. It's
Yeah.
time traveling doctor, and he does an episode where they go back to visit Van Gogh. And I don't want to spoil it. I really like, if you like Van Gogh, I think you'd love this episode.
Okay.
So,
I will watch Doctor Who then.
Yeah, I'll try to find the exact episode and like send you a link.
Yeah.
But all right, let me think how I'm going to phrase this then. I will say, back to what you were saying, like, yeah, we don't know the impact we make on people, but I do feel like this is an opportunity to like realize that. Like, I think that's kind of the beauty of Van Gogh's story, in how that it keeps giving. Like, he gave us this art, and he also gave us this example of like, hey, you never know what the next generation, like how they're going to treat someone, and what, like you said, like what impact that could have on someone. So you also never know, like, just hey man, I see you working real hard, or like trying to find the positive out of something for someone, like,
Yep.
So if anyone's listening to this, like, it's okay to just like say a nice thing every now and then to someone and be like, hey, I see you working, like, good way to be at your desk, or something like that, something real simple. Those go a long way. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
100%. Gosh, I love that dude.
I know, me too. And I thought you were going to go a different direction with the how dirty do you want to go with this question?
How nerdy, sorry. But we could go. There were definitely dirty aspects. He's not a shining example of, or maybe he's shining. He's not a perfect example of humanity.
Yeah, in the original question before we tangented all this is like, do you remember something that stopped you in your tracks? Well, man, all of them were like unbelievable, like floor to floor, just like they're really moving for me. So I'm getting to enjoy the art like it's like TV in a painting in the wall, and it's going to be that same scene repeating over and over, but it's just like, okay, I see what he wanted to do with this, or what he wanted to portray, or I'm getting different feelings from each of these paintings. But there was this one in particular. I mean, Starry Night was amazing to see in person, but there was another one I remember in the same room as Starry Night. I don't know what it was called. It was huge. It was like, an 8-foot painting, and it was similar style, like very, very melty, and like things dripping apart on it. And there was a bench in front of it, and I sat down there. Like, it stopped me in my tracks, and I sat down for so long that eventually this guy came over and he started like asking me about it, like, what do you get? How do you feel from looking at this? And we chat for a while, and he's like, all right, well, now I'm going to need you to move along. And I'm like, what? I can't, I'm really enjoying this one. And he's like, no, I mean, like, the museum's been closed for like a half an hour, and you're pretty much the last one sitting in here, so like I need you to at least head that way and like look at the last few on the way out, and leave that door right there to your, like 50 feet to your left. And I looked in the hallway, I'm like, oh, the whole tour leads to this exit. And I'm like, I am so sorry. It must have been maybe 2 or 3 hours that I was just stuck looking at this painting.
That's amazing. I wish I've never made the time to do that. I wish I could. Like, so I live in Fort Worth, and there's like 2.5 like world-renowned museums here with some pretty like incredible art, and I go there a lot. But I've got kids, so when I go, I'm like dragging them along because they're like, I don't want to go to the art museum, and I get that. Like, I remember being that way. So I wish I could go and just have that, like, just spend a day with a piece, Like,
yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to. Did it have? Was it like a water scene?
It's been a while since I've been back. I went there in 18 and 19, both in a row, were the last 2 times. So
Okay.
I cannot remember, which is a shame. I'd have to like look. I'll probably Google after this and be like, okay, what are all his most famous ones? Um,
Okay.
I don't know.
It's all good,
Maybe it
man.
was the melty clock one, but it was that similar style, and it was in his last like most not abstract, but most like a lot of his things seem to be like reflecting his inner state, where stuff is like dripping or coming apart.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Okay.
it was beautiful.
Nice. All right. Yeah. When you find out, let me know. 'Cause
Will
that
do.
sounds cool.
And yeah, dude,
Um,
have your mom or your grandma like watch the kids sometime because, you know, take you and the lady or you and a friend or whoever, like getting a chance to. I know you can't do it, kids. You got to be mindful of
Yeah.
them the whole time and all that. But
Yeah.
getting to sit in a museum full of art that's really all speaks to you, like your type of art, is really like nothing else. You know, it's better than going to see a movie because it's like you just get to like kind of silently observe it and be the like everyone's going to interpret it a little bit differently, so it gives you a lot of time to like just really think, you know, like
mhm.
somewhat introspectively, somewhat as like the observer, and you know, what was this person trying to convey to me? And I think you need a whole day without like a little one tugging at your arm, or like the type of friend that's just not into it and they're bored rushing you through it. Like you need to actually have that entire day to have that just like peaceful adventure.
Mhm. You're right. I should do that.
Yeah.
I'll invest in myself and do that.
Yes.
So that was in Amsterdam. Have you been there? Like, I think they do a parade on his birthday or something. Have you heard about this? A parade
um
of flowers,
in Amsterdam, I didn't know that.
like through the channel or whatever. What, I don't know what you call it. The
The
water.
canals like that.
Yeah, canal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's like his birthday. But anyway, dude, that's dope. So,
That is definitely
okay.
my favorite artist, and I love his paintings. For some reason, you know, I remember being like a kid. You go to some of your friends' parents' house, and they have like landscape photos on the wall. You know, it's just a scene of like a cabin on top of a hill. And I thought, like, well, that's kind of simple. You know, that doesn't really speak to me. Like, I feel like I could
Mhm.
almost draw that, right? But his like some of his landscapes, it's generally like, you know, a beautiful Dutch countryside with like what you could see is like a small house, and then almost looks like a stick figure, but just with the way he makes the strokes, like you can see there's like enough detail where you're like, all right, that's like a guy in suspenders with a broom. You know, there's not a lot of detail until you look at it more and more and more, and then
Yeah.
there's just sort of like rolling meadows of like wheat fields and like a sunset. And when he draws that, it's just like I know he's drawing that because they didn't have TV back then, and he's just drawing like the beauty of nature in front of him, and just kind of telling you like the world he lives in, you know, like how
Mhm.
simple it is, how pretty it is, but also how like this is it. There's not a lot going on, you know. You're in everything that you see, and what do you want to do today? Do you want to continue farming, or do you want to like think really deep within and maybe paint about it? So
So that's cool. I thought it was gonna be something either Latin or Asian. So
uh,
I'm thrilled that it's Van Gogh because I love that dude. So
yeah,
have you been to Spain?
I have. I've been to Barcelona years back as well when I was doing more Europe events.
All right. Did you go to the Dolly Museum there?
No, I did not, and I
Try
regret it.
put that on your list if you ever go back.
Yeah.
He's the melting clock guy.
Oh, okay, okay. I did
So
confuse it then.
and that was like the surrealistic movement.
Mm,
He's kind of like the king of that, and
yes.
did some trippy like I maybe that's not the right word. Some very like he would mess with uh like superimposing stuff, things that look like Photoshop, but he was a
Yeah.
master painter. Like he was Van Gogh was not near as technically sound as Dali was, and
Mhm.
so um, he's a cool dude. And I've heard great things about his museum. I've not gotten to go, but
Oh, I was hoping
it's
you
on
were
the
going to
list.
tell me you went.
No, I did. I'm pretty much a normal touristy dude, especially when I'm traveling with my wife and kids. It's like, all right, I'm gonna like make sure everyone's safe and all that. So we did. I have in-laws that are French, so we did the south of France, like Saint Cyprien, I think, but it's like right next to the Pyrenees Mountains. So we just made a drive to Barcelona, and we were going to see the cathedral. I can't remember what it's called now, but like they're still working on it. It's been going on for over 100 years. They've been working on this
Whoa.
cathedral, and we thought we'd just drive in, but apparently it was like high tourist season, and you had to like reserve your passes to like go and see it. So we
Jeez.
just sort of cruised around Barcelona. But
Dude, so that's so cool. Like, this is a conversation, so like I can almost kind of interview you on questions, and you being like an art guy, like you're an art teacher, so you really like art. How mind blowing is that there is art that is being worked on and developed for 100 years, where like it takes a painting like sometimes up to a year to do a really good painting before they're like, yep, I can't add anything to this, and that's a long time. But for a piece of art, which a lot of buildings are, especially like those big like Gothic cathedrals, for that to span longer than at least one, but maybe two, maybe three different lifetimes or generations of people, where people are adding to this thing and they aren't even going to see the final outcome. Like, isn't that fucking crazy?
that is, when you phrase it like that, like just knowing that you're a part of a legacy.
Yeah.
You may not see the final product. Like, it's super cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that makes me feel like, I don't know, not emotional, but like there's an emotional connection to that. Like, that they see that they're part of a bigger picture.
Yes.
Or that there's something beyond them that is more important. So I love things like that. And yeah, dude, it's mind blowing that like people are committed to following this dude's plans.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why it's taking so long either. Like, it's freaking 2024. Like, we can't just 3D print this stuff. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, like, so it's pretty crazy. I
Yeah.
think while you were saying that, I was thinking about also like people who restore these famous paintings or whatever, like the amount of science and patience and like not trials, but the amount of like effort that goes into making, like, restoring stuff. You said you went to Rome. Did you go to the Vatican?
Oh, yeah.
Like the Sistine Chapel?
Yep.
So they may as well have just repainted it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the amount of work that went into it. Probably more work than actually painting it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Michelangelo's another big hitter that I love. And gosh, that stuff's crazy.
It is.
His piece, did you see the sculpture of Mary holding Jesus in the Vatican? The Pietà?
I'm sure I did, because I walked every square inch of the Vatican that you were allowed to.
Nice, man. I love that, dude. Good for
Yeah.
you, man. Yeah, that was my trip when I was 16.
Oh,
and
nice.
and that was my like stop me in my tracks. Holy shit. Art can like I had a Matrix moment where like
Mhm.
just everything stopped, and that's all I focused on. It is, yeah.
Pretty impressive. The sculptures are like, you're like, okay, it'd be tough to do that now with like a laser or like modern tools like machinery, and like
Mhm.
a CNC machine making a mini one has to be
Yeah.
very like hyper precise. But back then you're looking at this thing from like 1400 years ago, and you're like, it looks so lifelike. It's like so detailed and exact in proportions to like, I mean, try to draw a human hand. It is,
Mhm.
it's hard, So
Yeah.
for these people to sculpt it out of one singular piece of stone, and if anything cracks off, you're fucked. Start over. Like, dude,
Mhm.
that is insanity.
Yeah, he was something else. That
Yeah.
dude was I've read stories of him, like they had to like cut his boots off him. He would just work straight through like months at a time without, I don't know. He was something else.
Jeez.
Okay. Well, let's see. So we talked about art that stopped you in your tracks. Who's an artist that we need to know about besides Van Gogh? Because we already talked about him. This could be your music moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm very much into music, and once again, I don't make music. I'm a Neanderthal. You know what I mean? I'm an appreciator of stuff. I like going.
They
to
were
festivals.
pretty intelligent, is what I'm finding out. So
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, like half the reason I go to like music festivals is they're normally art festivals too. Like when you go to Burning Man, there's huge art installations everywhere in like a 5 mile circle, and it's beautiful. It's like modern day brilliant art where
Yeah.
maybe it's not like things in the Sistine Chapel, but still you're like, man, it's impressive that somebody like made this and then disassembled it and brought it out to the desert and reassembled it. And so I am a person who likes to enjoy art recreationally, but music is definitely the one I like more, because I feel like some artists, they are able to do things with a computer that similar to painters. I can't fathom it, and it's impressive, and so I'm a fan of it, and I listen to like a very specific genre normally. Like I think a lot of people listen to electronic music, but in EDM there's a ton of stuff. There's house music, there's like dubstep, there's techno.
is that still around? I thought that went away.
There is still dubstep.
Okay.
It sounds different now. It's not like the Skrillex you're picturing in 2009 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's evolved, and there's like headbanger music that's very popular. Like Excision has been around forever, and now there's a million people like him. But I like this more, I'd say, obscure music that's called experimental bass, and it's like dubstep. It's a bass music, but it sounds more. The best way to explain it is like wonky or wubby.
Wubby, I like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Wubby.
fun noise samples used, and sometimes even the lack of noise used, and I just really like how creative it is, and how complex. Like it sounds like something that's just an extreme complexity when it hits your ear, as opposed to a house beat where a lot of times it's like the same singular bar repeated. I'm like, I think if you gave me an hour, I could put that together.
Mm-hmm.
The music I listen to is very like layered, almost like like Pink Floyd was of their generation, where you're like, this is amazing. They're sampling a woman's voice for one instrument and then using a million other things layered on top of it. And so now there's just people who can do that in their computer.
Dude. Okay, is there a specific band, or is it just the experimental bass facet of EDM?
I like that most of that genre, like pretty much most any artist in that, I'm gonna enjoy. Some sound more spacey, so you would call it like space bass or future bass. But yeah, in particular, like there's this artist that anytime they're in the area, whether it's at just a one night concert or if they're at a big festival I'm going to go to, this artist named G. Jones, I'm going to go see that guy,
Okay.
and there's a few others similar, like Closey or Rez. I have a list of like 5 or 6 that I've probably seen them 10 plus times now, since I started seeing them in like 2014, so spaced out over time, but I can't get enough of them, and their sets they're more like a painting or an opera, in that it's not just one hit after hit after hit. It's not like
Formulaic.
Yeah, there's some DJs that it's kind of like when you go see a rock band where they play that single, right? And then there's the break, like thank you, and then they start another single, hit single, hit single. No, these kind of artists, their sets will ebb and flow for like their entire 1 to 2 hours, and it really like it kind of takes you on an adventure, like it's telling a story the whole time, and that's why I'm like, I need to go back and have that hour or two again. It's not just like listening to it on Spotify. Being there with like the sound quality of like $1 million sound system at a big concert, and like the level of bass, and combined with their kind of music, it's almost so like all captivating that you're like in this realm of just that music until it ends. And when that hour ends, it's like the lights click back on and you're back in your normal default reality. You're just like, that was wild. Like I really just went on a journey with that DJ.
That's awesome. So it very much is the experience also.
Yes.
Dude. Okay. I gotta try it. Never been to an EDM. I'm mostly like a these days I'm a hardcore guy.
Oh, okay.
But growing up it was blues and whatever my dad took me to. So
yeah.
I'm trying to think. Closest I've done, I was in Germany and I went to there's like this multi-level club.
Berlin?
Oh gosh, I wish I knew where we were. It was a military town. This was my senior year in high school.
Oh wow. I know what you mean though. Go on. They have a lot of those like techno warehouse clubs.
Yeah, but this was like, so I went with my buddy to his uncle's, and his uncle's like he's in sort of a new metal band, I guess you would call it, like Korn-esque.
Yeah.
So we went to like a not heavy metal, but heavy metal techno club. Mm-hmm. Very German feeling, like when I think about it. But it was, there was a DJ and a dance floor. And it was like, this one, we went to a normal club, and I'm not a dancer, so I was 18, so I was like, I'll get some beers, because I can now. But this one, I was like, observation eyes were on. I was like, what could possibly come of this? Yeah. And it was, it was cool. They were having a good time. But yeah, man, I gotta find a cool EDM. What's a good intro like EDM show? Should I just whatever pops up? Or?
Honestly, I could send you more stuff afterwards, or I could tell you about this for an hour. But look up raves near me. I don't think Texas has a massive scene, but every state, no matter what, even the middle of Iowa, there's going to occasionally be some like bass music shows. So I'll give you some recommendations, or you can shoot me a message and be like, hey, this is coming up next month. Should I go see this? And I'll be like, yep, that's one of these artists. Like their set isn't going to be just a bunch of singles. It's going to be like a really good, well put together set. All right. And then if you want to, like beyond just a show where you pay for a ticket that night, look up like a good music festival, like there's a lot of these. I don't know if you want to start small so that then you're like, that's cool, I can build up, and it's like just a little like camper festival for the weekend, or if you want to jump right into like EDC, which is like the really big, like 500,000 people there in Vegas or Orlando.
Dang.
But the one problem is once you go there, it's kind of like
you're there.
Well, it's like if your very first car was a Ferrari, and then you step down to driving Hondas and stuff like that. Like you're never gonna be satisfied again. You've already tasted the best. So if you go to EDC too early, that's like the biggest and best stages in the world. They only get the top artists and like 100 of them. So like by the end of that weekend, your mind is blown. But now you've put up such an expectation or a pedestal for the future that any other festival you're gonna go to is like, oh, that kind of that was disappointing. But you're
Yeah.
comparing it to the best one.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I like that. I'll see whatever pops up in my Ticketmaster or whatever music feed I get, and
Yeah,
I'll message you. I like that. That's dope, man.
yeah,
I like the experiential stuff of it, like live music in general. I think just being there with other people and being like, we were both here for this, or we were all here for this. No one else was. Even if they recorded it, they don't know how special this moment was. And
yeah.
those I don't know what you would call that. A transient moment, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cool, especially when you share them with someone.
They're very cool, and I think why live music is even cooler as an art than somebody just putting out content on their Spotify, which is so cool. They're still creating an art form for us to listen to and enjoy in our car or our headphones. But why it's cooler to me in person is because it's that shared experience where, like, they as the DJ need you out there for this as much as you need them for the performer. Because, like, when they're doing it live and, like, kind of doing things spontaneously, whether it's a DJ or even, like, let's say a rock band that starts to riff, they are, I could get real nerdy on this, like, on top of they already know how to make their music, this thing starts to happen where, like, they're kind of ebbing and flowing off the energy of their concert. And, like, instead of just seeing each individual one of you that they would meet one by one, they're more reading, like, the vibe of the crowd, because the crowd will start to all vibe similarly, you know what I mean? Like, if they're putting on something people aren't vibing with, you'll see the crowd is, like, all, like, kind of, like, swaying, like, it almost looks tired. Almost like an ant colony as movement, depending on different vibration in the air. Or it'll, like, tune out. Like, more people just be distracted talking to themselves or whatever. But if they're really feeling what the DJ's putting on, then you see, like, they'll go hard. You know, the entire crowd seems to have this, like, wave of energy, more jumping, more dancing. And the DJ can, like, change and adjust their set as they go to, like, okay, I see this is what they're liking, so let me feed more into that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't want to kill you, so they tone you down a little. They crowd control you for a few minutes, so you can, like, rest your back, and then 5-10 minutes it builds back up, and then they, you know, kill you with more energy again.
Dude. Okay. Yeah. I'm all for that. I love live performances. All right, man. Here's one for you. How do you think being on Dynasty now? So I know, like, but like, you've been on top level teams for a while now. Aftermath and Infamous. Don't make that face. Those are they were top level teams.
They are high level teams. These are teams that people want to be on. They're legendary.
There we go. That's a better word. Legendary.
But Aftermath, the best we ever finished, I think both years in a row, was 8th. And Infamous, the best we finished, was 7th. So, once again, those are teams that can win. But, like, you have to be real about it, right? Like, there's teams that are 10th that can maybe win, but they're not a top-tier team. There's Tier 1, and then there's Tier 2, right? And some of the teams vary between Tier 2 and Tier 3. But, like, the top teams, you can name them all, right? Like, it's like Dynasty, Russians, Impact, Heat, X Factor. That's it, right? And now Fit is a team that's won. Ironman won, like, 4 or 5 years ago, but the consistent, like, top 5... Oh, and Tampa Bay Damage, because they've won a few recently. So you have, like, 6 teams that kind of jump in and out in that top 4 tier. And I was on Damage, but it was long ago, and it was probably before I was ready for it in my career.
Is that when they were shooting the Mac devs?
No, it was right after. I was in their camp when they were doing that, and then right when I went to the pro team in 2017, they switched to DLX, and we had, you know, Tim Montresor and all the legends kind of coming back, guys who were on a break, getting real careers and stuff, and Yeah, crazy year. I think I see. Is that Tim Montress on your wall behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that was a COVID painting. After he passed, it was like, I think I need to do this. So,
he was my favorite hero ever in
yeah,
this game, and my favorite teammate I ever got to play with and play for.
he seemed like a great dude. I would love to hear some stories about him if you want to. I don't feel pressured or anything, but I remember. So I when he was playing with Kiev United, or I don't know what that
Kiev
team
United.
was. Kiev United.
Yeah.
Him and Swaggy. I
Yep.
can't think of his name. Keith Brown.
Keith Brown.
Were there, and they were the English speaking people on the on the webcast. So
Yep.
I was lucky enough. I asked him a question about something, and on that, and he answered it. And I was like, "Oh, this dude's cool." But he always,
Yeah.
you know, everything I've ever heard about him was like great stuff,
Yeah.
positive stuff, and so yeah.
Super positive. Like Tim was already like, my hero because Tim lived the lifestyle that I wanted and now live. That was the guy
I
who
can see that. Yeah.
there's a bunch of guys who they made paintball their lifestyle, like they are true professionals, but Tim was like in everyone's mind, he's like universally paintball's international ambassador, where like that was Mr. USA, that was Mr. Paintball worldwide, and it didn't matter how small your field or league was, he was coming to your league at some point, like once that year, to like spread paintball, shoot up the people playing there and like help the team he was on win, but also like kind of spread like how to raise the caliber in that country,
Yeah.
And so he was already like this guy who I tried to emulate my entire career, but he was extra special to me because Tim did so many things, and I've heard he's done this so many. Everybody has a thing that they could say Tim did for him. Even like divisional guys can be like, oh, this one time he did this for me, but Tim gave me so many opportunities in the sport because I feel like after he and Keith were on Kiev United, I forget what he did, but he went to some other team or he like phased back from Europe, and he offered me and Tim Brussel back the Kiev United spots. So we played with those guys.
Oh, that's crazy.
And Tim got me on my first Team USA team. And Tim got me on
Wait.
Tampa Bay Damage. Like, I think that was a lot of them, but I know Tim was a big part of that conversation because he already knew me from the Northeast. So, like, and Tim was also the reason I started playing in Mexico like 8 or 9 years ago now. But just so many different things where, like, he would just do this without expecting anything back, but he'd be like, I have a network there. Let me see if I can hook you up. And he would just throw all these amazing opportunities my way.
What an ambassador that dude
Yeah.
was. Like, man. Sweet. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah. I got a million stories of his, but I feel like I'm just going to have, one of his really close friends, like the guys who are brothers to him, like the Philly American dudes on the show, on my own show, and then we can all just share not just their stories, but Tim's stories together, because we all have a lot. Like, once I started traveling a lot and seeing that dude, everywhere I went, he was already there, like, having a beer at the bar, and
yeah.
And so
I was just about to say, do that episode, but do it like a round table, where it's like all the homies cracking one open for him, and then just telling stories, like, I don't know, don't record that. You do that, but don't share it public. I feel like that's like one of those special moments that like are for you and the people that are there. Like,
well,
you do whatever you want, but
I see what you're saying there, and a lot of me agrees with that. But also, like, I believe sharing someone's story is similar to like keeping their painting, because it keeps their memory alive, if not more. You know what I mean? Like, every time you talk about these wonderful things that someone amazing did for you or with you, you're making an ode to them that day. And so me and my friends who have, mopeded around Langkawi Island drinking beers and trying to keep our shit from getting stole from monkeys with Tim Montresor, like we know these stories and we laugh about them, right? But it's like there's these other people that I think they already know he's a legend for what he accomplished in his career. But I think if they heard those type of stories, like just the type of guy he was, the energy put off, and the type of adventurous, like, you know, literally Raiders of the Lost Ark life that this dude lived more days than not in his day-to-day life, because he was just the pro player slash DLX or Smart Parts tech, traveling from one event to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Like, his events would be linked together where there would be no break. Like, no weeks of the year almost would he be off. Yeah. You know? And so I think it'd be nice for people to hear the stuff that we could bring up. And since, you know, rest in peace to the man, like, he's not here to tell those stories himself, like, I feel like somebody has to tell these amazing adventures that his life was.
You're right. Okay. We'll do it. And then, but like, collect the stories and then make, like, try to collect photos and do like a coffee table book and, like, I don't know, sell it and make it like some charity for whatever he, you know, would go, or like for his parents or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. You do whatever. I just want it to happen. I do want to hear the stories, but I would also understand if y'all are like, this is our moments.
Yeah.
You know, like.
As long as it just happens is what you want, and I agree. And I do need to get that right group of people together. All like the, you know, I don't know what I'd call them, like this international bandit gang, but it's like the hymns.
That's pretty dope. I like that.
Yeah, them.
National
like
bandits.
Yarber, Greg Sewers before he retired was always part of this. You know, Greenspan, of course, Marcelo, of course, Ronnie DeZan. There's like this group of, like, it's always the same, like 15, 20-ish alternating guys that whether you go to Europe, Asia, South America, Australia, you're going to see these dudes. Yeah. So, anyways, I didn't mean to tangent you too far off of the question you asked. You asked some type of question. And And then I pointed out Tim on your wall, and we went way away from your question.
Well, I'm down to talk about Tim. That dude, like, I don't even remember. I know there was one I wanted to ask about travel and what kind of impact do you think being on Dynasty, if that will help or hurt your travel.
So you said, it started with the top teams thing, and then you were like, no, they're on Dynasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this will, like, do you think maybe you and Greenspan will go somewhere, or maybe Greenspan will throw you a bone, like,
for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and I don't expect anything from him, but, like, this team already feels so warm and family-ish. And, you know, one of my best friends of all time, Harrison, has been on the team now. And beyond that, you know, I've played in Malaysia with Arturo. So, like, I know these guys are all, they love travel. They are all culture enthusiasts. They definitely soak up every perk the sport has to offer, and they live life to the fullest. And some of them are transitioning into, you know, more the family part of life. You know, Greenspan has young children. Blake Yarber has a baby. Like Yosh, Alex, all those, like, horsemen of the team, the guys who are one generation before me. Like, I'm 34. Some of those guys are 5 to 10 years ahead of me, somewhere in there, you know what I mean? Like, that generation of guys, they're now in the let's start a family, let's, you know, build our home stages. But I know that even though they maybe won't still be traveling 40 weeks a year, they still love it, and they still would do it whenever they can. It's going to be just more like, hey, they're bringing the family along. So because of that, like, I know that things will happen even more for me than they already do, and it's been, I've been so stoked. Like, I've been, like, just, like, sometimes, like, dying in fits of laughter in my apartment by myself, because I know Dynasty is going to lead to more of what I love so much, and it's just, like, such fun synergy for me, because at the same time as this, like, about right around World Cup time, my career that I do, I was able to, like, rework my contract to be, like, basically all remote. So,
hell
like,
yeah, dude. That's the dream.
Yeah, the synergy there is wonderful because I thought I was still going to be an Infamous, right? And I was like, cool, now I can start going back to playing Europe events, maybe playing Asia event. I'm going to do more of these things. But on top of, like, now I can go travel more. When you get on Dynasty, it's like, I think just naturally, like, people want clinics from Dynasty players.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like now I'm going to get more opportunity to travel than ever. And in the last 2 years, I wasn't able to take all that because I had to do X amount of hours every week here at the office. So I wasn't really in that stage of life anyways. I was like trying to build to earn the chance to get freedom again. And now at the same time, I get the freedom and I get the team that, like, in my eyes, kind of like they represent paintball. You know, like there's pro teams, but Dynasty are like the ambassadors to, like, even if you're a non-paintball person, like, you know, my mom, they can always name one pro team. It's Dynasty. Yeah. So now
what's the blue team on the Walmart stuff? Like, they were in Walmart.
Yeah. So now I get to be on that team where it's like you're like, dude, it's a pinch me moment because it's like I have the freedom to do it again, and I'm on like the international ambassador team. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna travel
with your boys,
more.
Man.
With
with you and Harrison, and then
Kyle Berry. I used to live with Kyle Berry.
Yeah, and y'all were on Damage together, right?
We were on Damage Semi-Pro.
Okay.
And before that, we were on New York Extreme in Semi-Pro.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, dude, I'm excited to see like how this year pans out for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm excited just for the year to start. I can't take this off season, like everything that's happening. It's like, oh, okay, guys.
You have no idea, dude.
I really don't. I can't imagine it from your perspective.
Oh, also, I'm dying for this season to start now. I wish practice was tomorrow, you know, because every year I'm excited to get back to it, but normally there's like that holiday time where you're like, oh, I'm okay for, you know, taking a break from paintball for a bit to like refuel the fire. Like, I know I'll get hungry again if I just take a few weeks off in a row. But now, especially with like my new gear package landed and sitting here in my hands, it's like I wish it was tomorrow. Like, I don't want any more winter. I am done waiting. I want to start training with these guys, and you know, the fire's lit. Like, I can't wait to just work my fucking ass off and truly like go at winning a tournament with, like, you know, some of the best players to ever do it and that are still doing it.
Yeah. Golly, man. So super jealous of you. That's in the best way. Like, that's gonna be amazing. So you said you mentioned, like, in our messaging, that you're going to Vietnam soon.
Yeah.
What's taking you there?
So actually, not paintball, and it's only the second time ever that I have traveled without paintball being the reason to bring me there. Like, you know, to sum it up quick, I'll say, like, before finally getting this career 2 years ago, I never had a lot of money, and pro paintball doesn't really pay you much normally. You know, it's like just enough to get by. So if you're a minimalist, you can live an unbelievable life, but like on a budget of zero. You know what I mean? Every time you go somewhere, it's because a team covers your flights and puts money in your pocket for food and some money to go home, right? And it's just enough to pay rent. So for like the last decade of my life, I have only really been to all these cool countries because a team was bringing me there to play a tournament or to give a clinic. But this time, fortunately, I get to go to Vietnam without a gear bag, just, you know, a backpack, because my lady is Vietnamese, and her family lives there, and she hasn't been back to Vietnam in over a decade, and so she wants to, you know, see her elder relatives while she still can. And I've never met them. I met her mom and dad when we went to Poland to see them, and that was the only other time that I got to travel without a paintball gear bag.
Dang. Well, all right. Sounds like she's a keeper if she leads to all this traveling.
That's extra perks. I'm like, if she had said, "Hey, I'm going to go home and visit my family in Delaware," honestly, I probably I'll be
have
honest with
fun.
myself and like, I got shit to do, But
Yeah.
she's like, well, do you want to meet them? They're in the villages outside of Hanoi. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right this
sure.
second. Let's go.
That's what I want to do. I need to check off another country off the bucket list. So I'd love to go meet them and eat a really good like home cooked meal, and then just backpack down the coast of the Vietnam till we know we're in the island in the south.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a hell of a year for you, man. And we're a few days in.
You are not kidding, bro.
Dang.
January 2nd started off like Christmas with, a box of unbelievable gear and apparel, and now I leave on the 8th. So, yeah, that'll be great. And then right before that, I'll go get my first and last chance of a good snowboard trip in. I'm finally going to ride a mountain, Mount Hood, up here in Oregon. And
all right.
I'll stay there at an Airbnb cabin and just ride fluffy powder for 2 days.
Why is it your last chance?
Okay, so I thought about this. I wanted to try one other mountain, like do a Washington one this year. I'll say I already don't
this year.
This
Sorry.
year, yeah.
Okay.
And I only really ever ride 1 to maybe 2 or 3 times a season, just because, when you play pro, but you're a competitor, it's hard for me to just go and cruise a mountain all day. Eventually I'll like hit a rail or a jump, and one mistake could cost me my first 1 or 2 events of a pro season. So I try to avoid snowboarding, but if I'm near a mountain that I haven't done, which I have not rode here in Oregon, then I'll check it off the bucket list, and I'll just go and be gentle and carve the powder all day and do 10, 15 runs and call it before I start having that voice in my head that's, board slide this kink rail or do something stupid like I did in college. And as soon as I come back from Vietnam, I'll land on like the 25th, and the next day I'll fly out to Mexico for our first Dynasty practice. And then I'm in the zone. Right then and there, I'm going into practice. 2 weeks later, we have San Diego practice. 2 weeks later is the layout practice. So even though there will be snow here for February, like there's no way I'm going to go snowboarding between serious practices for Dynasty.
Yeah. Especially when you're the new guy. You don't want to...
Yeah.
Dang, man. Okay. What's so North America, what's your favorite mountain?
Oh man, I've not been blessed enough to go to some of the really good ones I hear of, like in Colorado or like Whistler, things like that. But out of all the stuff I've been to, man, that entire area at Lake Tahoe is like magical.
I've heard great things.
If you ride, you have to go, bro.
My dad is a ski bum. Like, he retires this in a couple days, actually. But every year, he's like part of a ski club that, like, just a group of dudes that goes and travels to different places. And
sick.
He lived a cool life, man. Like, he did a bunch of fun stuff. I'm nowhere near as cool as he was. But he did a event or a day where he sailed. He was a big Hobie Cat sailor. He sailed on Lake Tahoe and then skied on the mountain there also. Like,
sweet.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
He sounds interesting.
That's a good way to phrase it. He is interesting. He's quirky, I'll say that. But he's got some stories.
Quirky are the best people.
Yeah, he'd have some tales for your podcast. I think he like parked his truck in Mexico like at low tide one time, and that was that.
My
like,
God.
Yeah. So
that's
I don't want to get him
story.
in trouble. Yeah.
I'd love to hear the full one, but I can picture it. Yeah, especially being in Mexico now. Your truck is gone. Jeez, dude, what a day that must have been.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know that I've heard the full story of that, so I think there's some details that we're missing.
Probably.
But anyway, man, I don't want to keep you too long. I really appreciate this. Thank you, for like being so flexible with me on this too.
For sure.
Gosh.
If I mean, bro, I like talking. One of my favorite thing is long conversations and connecting with friends or new people. So if you have more questions, like I will not rush you or be like, hey, I gotta go.
Yeah, no, you're good. Let me think. Something came to mind. Or do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So maybe it's Van Gogh, but if it's not, who's your favorite artist?
That's, who's your favorite pro player, Like, I see there's qualities, and ask me on any day or after any performance, I'm like, man, I love him. But I think Van Gogh has got to be, like, when I teach about him, I like get real serious, and I'm like, I need everyone to shut up and listen right now. Like, this is important. You need to know this, which is in the realm of things you don't really need to know him, but I think his story is something that deserves respect. So he is amazing. You mentioned Banksy. He's pretty cool. I think one you might be familiar with, Shepard Fairey or Obey.
Yes, of course.
So he's I don't know that I like am just like in sync with him on a lot of his like messages, but anyone that like has meaning to their art, I really love. And he's like a social activist through his artwork.
Yeah.
And has that whole punk rock vibe. So I love that dude. There's a lot. Michelangelo was another one.
Mm-hmm.
There is a dude who's an illustrator, and his name escapes me right now. Gosh. But he did a book on the Black Baseball League, and he's been in there a lot, in the news a lot lately. Gosh, what is his name? Kadir Nelson is his name. Super great illustrator, but like, again, like, just any day it could be someone else, and a lot of times it's, if I'm teaching about them, it's because I'm like into them. I've found that like I could teach about Da Vinci, but art wise I don't really want to teach about Da Vinci.
Yeah.
It's something about it's just too dreary to me. So there's a German artist called Anselm Kiefer, who's made some just incredible art that I love. Like, he did like huge, like almost installation work, but like I mean, like 50 feet by 20 feet, just giant stuff with ashes and emulsion and lead and like all these things on it that I love his stuff. So.
Dude, if you like installations, you need to go to Burning Man, because that is meant for people who enjoy art like that.
Yeah.
I've
heard, I don't know that that's my, like, I heard Archie talk about it a little bit on some podcast. Have you been? Have you been?
I've been there twice,
man.
And there's nothing like it, but even besides, like, it's a big party and a lot of people, it's the best art museum there is, because all throughout that desert area, you are in, like, I don't know, you're just in like these cool setups of, like, let's say a giant 50-foot tall thing that's made out of all 2x4s, but it looks like, a guy and then his inner child in front of him, and it's just all wood, or like these huge temples made of all plywood. But you just see these crazy spectacles as far as like big installations. And I think if you're someone who really appreciates art, you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to party or whatever. You just walk around looking for like inspiration or taking photos. Man, there wasn't enough time. Like, even in 8 days there, even you don't want to go to sleep because there's just so much to see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea also of I'm assuming the artists are there.
Yeah, normally.
Yeah, dude, that would be. That's the stuff I like really enjoy is getting to like just talk to an artist. Immediate connection to the artwork, in my opinion. Like if you talk to them, it could be bad art, bad art, but like you talk to them, you get to know like some of their like goals or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, and that makes it all that much more meaningful. So
Yeah.
and
you get to
think
ask,
about that one.
you get to ask the questions, and this could be anywhere, even if you just go to a museum near you. But when the artist is there, I always like talking to the artist too. Like I see them just standing there looking what to add, or like they just finished it, and I'm just like, hey, I just want to talk to them for a bit. And what I always find interesting is like when you ask the question, you're like, so, is there like a underlying message here, or like is that for me to interpret, or this and that? And sometimes you'll get that stuff, and they'll tell you like what they were trying to like make the viewer feel, or like what they were like kind of trying to hide in this piece. And then other people, they're just like, oh, I just thought it looked pretty. Like there's no thought behind it. They just wanted to draw whatever, a two-headed wolf or something like that.
That something about there's kind of a like a of the art world. I think painting is like the machismo genre, and for whatever reason that's something I like kind of resonate with. So whenever I see a painter talking about like, I just wanted to make a good picture, man, like something about that, like, all right, I guess I need to like reevaluate how I feel about this or whatever. But yeah I love that. It is a lot of fun talking to artists. Maybe not fun, it's informative either way. Talking to the artist, you're like, oh, this dude is nuts, but his artwork's cool.
It can be like nuts a lot of times, and that's funny because you'll see that in their art too, and when you talk to them, you're like, oh, it makes sense now. And like, so do you more prefer like the artists that they're obviously intelligent, very talented, but the more, I want to say, like aloof, carefree artist that's just like, I just wanted to paint it and it looks cool? Do you more prefer that art and meeting that person, or do you more prefer that art that you can tell is like probably trying to convey something important, and meeting that person who like they're almost like, sometimes they're like philosophical, or just either way they're really deep or mysterious? Which person do you prefer to meet?
I think it comes down to like sincerity. So I went to like a liberal arts school, and there are people who will do stuff that looks bizarre and crazy, and they will say, I just thought it looked cool. And that's kind of like a baller move to me, especially like in like a college class where you're supposed to defend your art. They're like, fuck you, I made this, I like it, you don't have to, or and to me that's cool. Or someone who's like really highbrow, as long as they're sincere about it. Like I have a buddy who is smarter than I will ever be, and I'll talk to him about his artwork, and I can keep up for a little bit, and then he gets to a point and I'm like, hey, we're friends, so I can rewind, I can ask you to rewind and say that 8 times so I finally get it. But like, I know he's being sincere. I know he's not trying to like, there are artists out there, there's famous artists out there who I'm just like it seems like they're BSing a lot,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I don't know that you'd run into that at Burning Man. That seems like a pretty like sincere crowd. So
every once in a while you get the people that it's like those like what's the best way I can say this, like the people who you want people to be spiritual, but they're like condescending spiritual. You know what I mean? There's like a thing that comes off where they're like, oh,
my trip was so much better than yours.
Yeah, we're beyond that. Like we're above that level. And so occasionally you meet that artist that they almost come off like they think they're too smart, or like they're too good for like, they're like, these people aren't even sophisticated enough to enjoy what this painting is really saying. You know what I mean?
Bullshit. Yeah,
and it's very far and few between, but I've met a few of them, and it's just like, all right, at first I liked this art, but now I think you're kind of a pompous asshole.
Yeah, that'll definitely, like, that happens where they're meeting the artist or researching the artist. You're like, not no more. No thanks. That brings up something. So there's a, I don't know what you call it, like not a swap meet, but there's like a, what would you call it? I can't think of it. There's a day every year where one of the main streets in Fort Worth allows a bunch of artists to put up booths, and you
sweet.
can sell your art. Yeah, and
like a street fair.
Like a fair. There you go.
Art fair, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like $100, and even if you're a bad artist, you're gonna make that $100 back. And me and a bunch of buddies now, like, it used to be real serious for me. I was like, I gotta make some money, like, because I do gotta make some money. But
no doubt.
now it's like, I know, like, okay, here's kind of my peak for this place. And now it's just a good time. Like, we'll go and bring our art and really just, like, put up some chairs and people watch. And one person, I had this painting that I worked pretty hard on and I liked. And people walk by, and I, like I said, I went to college for this, so I've heard a lot of people talk real fancy about art. And, this two dudes walk by, and someone goes like, "Oh, that's badass," and I'm like, that is probably the most sincere compliment you can get at one of the, or maybe not at this fair, but like from someone at this fair. That sounds so bad. From
no, I know
in
what
the
you mean.
moment, this dude drinking this beer, I think that's badass. Is like, thank you. That's a really great compliment. I appreciate that. And so I like artists who can be at whatever level. Because at another time, someone like had a moment with a painting, and like got kind of emotional, and I was like, this is, I don't know how to respond to this.
What,
this
like they cool. connected in a weird way with the piece, like it really called to them, and you're like, oh my god, I'm actually like affecting this person's soul right now.
Yeah, dude. And it was, I mean, the fact that they picked up on it was pretty bizarre to me, because it would have been a stretch, I think. So it was a painting I did. There's like this tree stump. I wish I had it just like ready to go, but it was like this tree stump with a shotgun sort of wrapped around the tree stump, and a cardinal just sort of resting on top of the tree stump, like standing on there. And the symbolism in that was like this weird connection in the events of my mother's death. So like I need to explain it after that. Sorry. That sounds weird. I went hunting with my buddy, and we were shooting shotguns, and just, it's Texas, so his stepdad had a lease, so we're shooting at birds, and hit a bird, and I go look, and it's a cardinal, and I was like, oh fuck. Like,
damn.
Like, I should have been better. I should have whatever. And that weekend is the weekend, like, I get back, and I don't really remember. That was like the last time I saw my mom before she went to the hospital, before she passed away. So that sort of like, that was my feelings going into it, making that painting, and the fact that she picked up on something like that. I didn't talk to her about it at all.
I was going to say, did you ask her, because obviously she wasn't there to see that scene, so how did this, you wonder how it connected with her.
Yeah, I know. And like, the cardinal was alive in the picture. Like, it wasn't a dead cardinal.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool, and like also like weird too. I was like, I don't, you're a stranger, but kind of not now. Like,
well, that's kind of that weird, like, It's like the probability generator of the matrix that we're in.
Okay.
I don't want to be too nerdy, but I think you know what I mean. Where like we all kind of, there's like, let's say, a million different things that can happen in life, and you're not all going to experience the exact same 10,000 of them, and you're not all going to experience them all. But some of you are going to experience quite a few of the same ones, or at least some. So maybe that scene jumped out to her, and it's crazy that, you know, it's a 1 in a million thing, but that she was also in the same city as you. But she might have had that same thing happen, you know, like went on a hunting trip, and then when she came back, she found out it was the last time she actually saw her father or something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a reason that those common threads seem to hit, because a lot of us do have things that a lot of other people can relate to, even if it's slightly different.
Yeah. It does, I don't know, it makes you think.
Did she buy it?
No.
Really? That surprises me that she didn't buy that on the spot or come back at the end of her walk, because normally, like, when something really speaks to someone, especially art that makes them like well up in like tears or emotion, that person generally wants that thing, unless it's really bad and it's like, oh, it's going to keep striking something that they don't want to remember. And that's why that could have been it. But if she stayed and hung out with it for a bit, it's almost like she wanted to relive it, or I don't know, or just. But like anytime I've ever bought art, it's been that thing where I'm like, oh, this one, of all the ones I could look at, I keep looking at this one, and it's speaking to me. And normally, if I walk away from it, if I'm still thinking about it the next day, I'm like, I'm gonna keep thinking about that goddamn painting, you know?
Yeah.
Now I need it for my wall.
Yeah, I mean, that's I appreciate people like you. Who do that. That one was not small, and it wasn't cheap, so
okay.
I'm sure those contributed a little bit. And the right person got it, I think, and someone else, a buddy, purchased it, and he kind of knew the story, so I don't think it's weird to say the right person.
Yeah.
Someone who appreciated it got it, so that's good.
That makes me think of a question for you, because I don't get to talk to many artists. I've never talked to any art teachers. Maybe I have, but I didn't know. But you know, the only time I talk to artists is at music festivals. And so, do you feel like that is a weird issue in art? Is that a lot of times ones that are really nice, obviously because they're bigger, they took a lot of time, they're priced at, I'm not going to say too expensive, because they're worth their value. They're worth your time as an artist, and to the right person, they're, invaluable. Like there is no price tag on it that they wouldn't pay. But sometimes I feel like art prices itself out from the person that maybe it's like what you just said, like maybe did it go to the person it was meant for? There's been some art that I've seen in my life where I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like I would want this as my house centerpiece, and no matter where I went, no matter where I moved, I could look at this all day, every day. But then I look down the corner and it's like $12,500, and I'm like, I can't afford this. I don't think I could ever afford this.
Yeah.
You know? And
I don't
so
think I'd ever want to. Yeah.
Somebody will afford it, but I'm just like, I don't know, is it going to go to just some whatever tech rich guy that's just like, I'll take that, and that, and they just throw them up in their house for more, things to cover the wall when people walk in? Or would it have been better off going to a person who's like, I would die for this painting, like, not that I'm going to die for it, but if I had the money, I would pay any money for it. It's just that I'm broke,
Yeah, I don't know that I'm the person to talk to about this, because I'll tell you my feelings, but just out front, like, I'm never going to fault an artist for trying to make some money.
Agreed.
Well, maybe not never. Especially someone like me who's not in museums or galleries. Like, do what you got to do. Sometimes it's that idea of like, if you price it, they will pay it. Like, I
Yeah.
have a friend who tried that this last fair, and was just like, I'll just price something at $1,000. We'll see what happens, and it worked, you know.
Nice.
And so cool, you know, like I don't like her artwork's good, and you know, more power to her. But I've been the type of person, like, I was working on a sketch one day at my buddy's house, and it was for someone else, like my other buddy, and he loved it. Like, he was over my shoulder just talking like how he loved it the whole time. And I'm like, well, I know you're gonna like this, so here, you take this, you know. And I've done things like that
Yeah.
all the time. Even at these festivals, people will talk about it, and I can tell they're being sincere, and they come back to get it. And I'm like, just here you go, you know. Like, if it's feeding you, like, how dare I, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
To some extent, you know. But
Yeah.
then there's this whole like, well, I do need to literally feed my kids.
Yes.
So,
So that I agree, and that's
Yeah.
where I think maybe there's a middle ground where I would never. You don't like the idea of a starving artist. Like, you want them to be able to sell their art that they're so good at, and you know, if you put it down to, like, let's say an hourly rate, like, pay them well. If they put in 30 hours in this thing, like, pay them for it, right? But I wish there was a middle ground where it's like, don't ever try to cheap an artist out and like hope they give it to you for free, because they put their time and heart into it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe, like, don't ever make it so expensive where you're only selling to, like, the elites, you know? Like, you want the common man to be able to, like, have good technology or good beauty in their house too, right? Like, that's why, you know, technology is now affordable for everyone. It's not only, you know, in the 80s with military people with computers in their households. So you want that, and it's like, there's so much good art that I'm not saying I should have Queen Elizabeth's jewels hanging in my house as a common man, but it would be nice for me to be able to have, like, the really cool paintings. So
Yeah.
maybe, like, you know, $500 or $1,000, that's reasonable. It's a thing I'll keep
is,
forever.
yeah.
I think I can afford a week or two's paychecks to do that type of permanent thing, but 12 grand? Well, you know, damn, now who's buying this piece of art?
Yeah. You know, if we talk hourly, that's a weird dilemma to his pricing, because it's like, does Mouse get paid hourly, or does he get paid on his experience? You know, so there's an artist, I don't remember who it was, but it's, I mean, there's plenty of examples like this. Who was it? Henry Ford talks about, like, he had this big plant built for Ford, and shit wasn't working, so they hired this dude to come fix it. Like, they were trying to fix it, and they couldn't figure it out, and the engineer came and, like, flipped a switch and fixed everything and gave him a bill for like $11,000 or something. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm paying you because you changed a bulb or something? He's like, no, you're paying me because I knew which bulb to change, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
there is that mindset as far as, like, pricing of, like, this is, like, years of my life are put into this.
Yeah, yeah.
So 12,000's not, I won't say it's absurd. It's expensive. It's real expensive. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a worthy conversation. I totally
It
get what you're
is.
saying. If I put 12,000 on something,
Well, I don't want to be
that would
bratty
be
about
like,
it.
What's that?
I don't want to be bratty about it, because if I ever heard an artist painted something stunning and they got $1 million for it, I'd be stoked for them.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I don't really want it to change. I just kind of wish that I could pay $500 for that
Yeah.
art that sometimes I've had to pass up on, where it's so pretty. And I sympathize with the here's why you're paying them that much amount, because, you know, as a professional paintball player, like, when you do clinics, a lot of times people are like, you know, looking for a discount, or, hey, if we do the whole weekend, can we get a little less or whatever? And they're thinking it sometimes is like, well, you're going to give me 2 days of coaching or stuff like that. And it's like, I probably have spent 30,000 hours of my life at this point to get this good, to know all these lessons of the chess game of the high level professional paintball. So I'm actually, you're getting like the immediate shortcut to the download that I had to spend my entire life and all the money I've ever made to get those same experiences. And I'm just going to tell them to you out in a singular weekend, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, it's weird, especially like as, does it feel weird to like change the value of yourself? Does that make sense? Like,
for sure.
It's really challenging. It's kind of nice when someone's like, will buy a piece of art and I'll give them a price, and then they'll be like, well, no, here's, sometimes it's been like, here's double what you asked. It's like, wow, that's really nice. It's also confusing. Like, should I value this more? Or, like, do I want to? I don't know. But
no, that's true. Because if they're gonna buy it from you and they're not your broke buddy who's stoked at the price you gave them, and they're actually smart and they got it, you know what I mean? They're a person who can afford to buy art. Then they probably looking at that going, this is worth whatever the number is, right? $1,000, and you just said, I don't know, 500, and they go, no, let me pay you $1,000. Like, I'm not gonna overpay you for this, but you don't need to like give me that kind of discount. This isn't a for sale liquidation thing. So in that way, it is funny when those people that are, and it's very genuine of them, like reprice you for you, and that happens in paintball times too, where they're just like, they're happy to pay what you're actually asking or more because they actually understand the value of it from like parts of their professional life.
Yeah, man. Those patrons, you gotta love them.
Patrons, yeah.
Yeah, yep. They know they're giving back in so many ways.
Yeah. Have you had patrons just donate to your podcast?
So I have like a Patreon, and there's I think I've got like 4 dudes right now.
Ah, okay, that's sweet.
That was, I mean, it's really cool. They're great dudes. 2 of them are like former teammates. So I think they know my potential, but I also think they're like, we love you, Clint. Here you go. You know? So, which either way is great. But I've had over the span of like this podcast or that Patreon, I've had like 9 people, and I met one dude, Edric Alvarez. I might be saying his name wrong, but he's a cool dude, and I think he works somewhere in Colorado on a mountain, and like I'll see posts from him where he's like literally like shaping the runs or whatever, like sort of like showing like, here's what we're planning to do this, or like cleanup days on the mountain, and I'm like, man, so it's so cool that like our paths connected and he's willing to like support me. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I've got some patrons that have helped out, and I really appreciate them. So,
patrons,
do you do a Patreon?
I don't do a Patreon, and I never really was looking to start that. I don't know, maybe I should, but it wasn't like an idea that I kept gravitating towards. But why I asked you if you had it and you do have a Patreon is because, I think twice people have just been like, hey, what's your PayPal? I'm like, hey, what's up? And I either like know the one or the other one, like I can tell they're a paintballer, but maybe not a close friend or like that. And I'm just like, why? And they're like, let me just send you money to help you do more of this podcast. And it's like,
that's dope.
That's cool. It's super cool that someone is truly like a patron or like almost like a philanthropist in like, you know what, I'm going to subscribe to this person's art or their works. So I'm just going to, no one's asking me to. They're not actually selling me a product to take home, but I want to hear more of this, so let me just send them money. And when that happens, like, it's never much, but it's like, well, it's just enough to pay for next month's Buzzsprout subscription. So sweet, keeping the lights on.
There you go, man.
Yeah,
that's super cool. I have a feeling you'll get more of those now with Dynasty. I feel like they're their like crew, their following is super strong.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Either way, like you should be getting just so many of those. I truly enjoy your podcast. I'm not just blowing smoke, dude. Like, I like you're on to something, and you've been onto it for a while. You're on like 30,
33.
33. So
I think 33 or 34 just went out. Yeah.
yeah, dude. Like, super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I listened to. I think the first one that I listened to was Kirill.
Oh,
Because I love that dude.
I know.
And to hear him like on a podcast, I was like, hell yeah, I'm down. Like,
Yeah.
anytime he pops up on something. I met him in Texas at this last NXL because I did. Do you know what a zine is?
No.
Okay, it's like a little. It's from sort of the. It came back to like from like the punk era, before the internet, and it was like people would just make these little pamphlets, really, of like micro comic books or magazines, and they would just send them out. And so I make one for sort of like me and paintball and my relationship with that, and I just sort of hand them out at tournaments or whatever. And he was one of the pieces like in my zine, so I like gave him the actual artwork, and it was really cool to talk to him. And the language barrier was a little off. He referred to, what did he say? It was a marker drawing, and he asked if it was aqualock or like I think he was trying to say acrylic or watercolors. I don't know, but either way, nicest dude ever. Like, anyway,
He is the man.
all that to say,
I do love that guy. Hey, I don't know if you can pause this, but can you give me 1 minute real quick?
Yeah, dude.
Thank you. So sorry.
You're
I'll
good.
explain in a second when I come back.
No worries.
Give me a sec.
No worries.
So sorry about that. I
all
left because
good, man.
I heard a bunch of like scraping and metallic noise coming out of my garage, and we have an open carport here, and I live in Portland, Oregon, which is an awful city. So sometimes there's like crackheads digging around in our garbage can and sometimes
way.
damaging the vehicles in the carport. So it's happened before. I've had some vandalization since living here, so I was ready to handle business if I had to, but I don't think it was in my.
Okay.
It wasn't in my garage. It might have been the house next door or something.
Oh man, that's bonkers.
Yeah, it's a wild city.
I can't imagine dealing with that.
Yeah, but
Sorry, man.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good.
Or that thought.
That was a
Kirill,
fun little story.
Yeah, yeah, life is wild here. But
Yeah.
Kirill is amazing. Definitely one of my favorite people ever. Super interesting guy when you get him in long form conversation because, you know, he's like Russia's Tim Montresor or Ryan Greenspan or that, you know, just well traveled, super cultured, charismatic, and highly intelligent. So he was fun to talk to.
Yeah, he is. Like, I don't picture him when I think of most Russian people. Like, there's a stoicism that comes off from most Russian people, and he's. I don't like. It's not like he's not stoic. Like, he's definitely like just a stand-up dude, and you can tell he like just really cares about stuff. So, let's see. What other questions? What's your? Let's talk about the United States. And what has been like your most interesting place that you've traveled in the U.S.?
Give me a second. Put me on the spot here, and I don't really think about the U.S. as much because, I mean, for, you know, my 2/3 of my life now, I've been traveling the U.S. for paintball, so eventually, you know, it's like you've seen Chicago and Florida 30 plus times each, Vegas 30 times. Like, it's a lot of it starts to get repetitive. So give me a second here. I mean, in this summer, I went to somewhere I thought was really remarkable. There's a place towards the bottom of Oregon called Crater Lake.
I remember seeing your stuff about that, dude.
Yeah.
That looked awesome.
Yeah. And
Sorry, cut you off.
I've seen a lot of cool stuff throughout the United States. You know, I've driven across this country like 6 times. Sometimes for
Dang.
tournaments, sometimes just for moving. But I've seen a lot of like the middle area, like just the endless flat, or like the mountains, or you know, I've seen a lot of the country. But this lake was like, dude, it's massive. It's like, I don't know, 25 miles across, something like that, in a big like oval, and there's an island in the middle of it that looks like a witch or a witch's hat kinda, and it's just remarkable. You know, there's something so surreal about it, almost like when you climb to the top of a mountain. Like when you walk up to this edge of this lake, you're just like, it looks like a crater, like it looks like maybe a comet hit there or something like that, and then it filled up. And that's not actually the story of it, if I recall, but it just looks like something that happened in a prehistoric time, and then rainfall happened to make it into this beautiful lake in the middle of nowhere. So I thought that was a really cool place to see in this country.
Nice, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was that the one? I feel like I saw something. Maybe it was someone else. But like there was like a sort of a tree going across, and then like this like bottomless pit. It looked like.
Oh no,
going down.
that is called, I think, Little Crater Lake. There's like, yeah, I think it happens to be almost the same name, but that one is only like, I don't know, 100 feet across. And it's like this tiny lake, but that was me. That one is super cool. That is like east of me near Bend, Oregon. There's this spot that you can go camping there for like $5. You can put out down a tent like a couple hundred yards away from it in like this little campground, maybe enough for like 20 spots of like RVs and tents. And then you walk through like a wetland, and all of a sudden you come through this clearing on this little like 100-foot lake. But it's actually not a lake. It's a natural spring that's like spilling up from the ground and like emptying into these wetlands. So you see like the shape of like this mini lake, but then like even beyond it, like the borders kind of blend because there's like tall grass, and it's like spilling into wetlands. But in that, there's like a couple trees that fell in there like 40-50 years ago, and they're just like perfectly fossilized, like going all the way, like disappearing towards the bottom. And the water is such a like sharply clear light teal that you can just see every detail like you're wearing polarized glasses.
Dude, that is cool. All right. Okay. Sweet. Well, man, I feel like I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't know. I'm struggling for questions.
I got a few more questions for you then.
Bring it on.
These are things that I'd like to talk about with an artist.
Okay.
They go through my head all the time. Okay, so first one. Is Picasso overrated? Do you, as an art teacher, think he's that good? Do you like him?
Where do you... I mean... no.
No?
That's a weird question in the sense of, like, we're all a little overrated.
Yeah. Well, I asked this because I think there's a lot of talent out there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Finish why I ask you this is, like, dude, the guy who did the melting clocks, like, you know, the really detailed realism, stuff like that, unreal.
Yeah.
Every Picasso painting I've ever seen with, like, a blocky face and a backwards nose, and it just doesn't really speak to me. It, like, they all kind of disappoint me. You know, I'm like, I don't know, it's abstract, but, like, it doesn't look that good.
Well, then, yeah. It depends. Like, if you want to take it at face value, which is hard to do with artists, like, that would be, like, your worst pro game that I take at face value, or your worst pro point that I take at face value, and I'm like, Joe sucks. So you could think about it like that. Like that one point doesn't speak for your full like wisdom and knowledge of the game and ability. but you have not researched Picasso enough.
I guess I've not.
That's what I'm gonna say.
I've not. The stuff I see is that are like in flip books and stuff like that, or like the couple that I could think of, the big ones. I'm just like, meh.
Yeah, I get it. Let me do this real quick.
Yeah, maybe I should this evening just Google and see what else he's probably done 1,000 things, and I can think of 5.
Oh gosh, I gotta find. I don't know if I can. It's gonna be real weird. Sorry.
That's
Let's see if I
okay.
can do this.
Okay, so
I can tell you, like, so this is his Rose period, and that's my favorite period of his. But Picasso was Picasso at like 14 or 17, something like that. Like, he mastered painting in his teens. And I mean mastered in, like, could do whatever he wanted. And so he got to this point, from my understanding, he got to this point of, like, it's all been done. Cameras just got him, or not just got, but cameras are kind of taking over realism. What is painting? And so he's part of this era of trying to redefine art. And also, like, this celebrity of, like, well, I can do whatever I want, so let me do what I want and try to figure this out. So he's trying to, like, invent. So if you want to, you can, there's potential to, like, really get into the history of Picasso. But if you don't like it, you don't like it. Like, you know, like, so in a way, yes, he's overrated, but also in a way, like, no, you know, depends on who it is.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess that painting you showed me, in my head, I would have never thought that was a Picasso, you know, because I guess maybe I only know his one little stage where people say, you know, I just feel like it's like a word that's also a descriptive where people are like, do you like Picasso pieces? And then if it's in a movie you're watching, it's always like just the weird, crappy shapes, you know? Mm-hmm. That's what they depict a Picasso as.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. And it's weird. There's a lot of it where it's like, I think he's just kind of playing the game. Like, I'm getting away with it, so why would I not keep doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, he was, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, like, he was a rock star, and he was living the rock star life. He was another one of those, like, not the greatest human.
Yeah.
He had some faults for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's like, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen the artist is Maurizio Cattelan, and the piece is called Comedian. It is the banana that's duct taped to the wall.
Oh my God.
What are your, I'm going to change your mind on this, but what are your, I'm assuming your feelings are not good.
Okay, I'm not saying that maybe it isn't saying something or like people can't appreciate that, but that's one of those things. It's the same reason I think some music is too simpleton. I'm like, yeah, but anybody could have done this, because I could have duct taped a banana wall. Like, that took no actual talent. That wasn't like a technical skill. That was just, well, I got this little bit of tape. Here's a banana. You know? Whereas, like, I cannot make a painting like Van Gogh paints.
Mm-hmm. So, if you could, he sold 3 editions. First off, it's the artwork is not the painting, the banana duct tape to the wall. It's the certificate saying you can duct tape a banana to a wall and put my name under it. So he sold 3 editions of this, and the first 2 were like $130,000. Then he sold the second one for $180,000. So he sold 3 editions of that for those prices.
He got rich off of fucking the
Just wait. There's some don't worry. But like, he sold those, but it's called The Comedian. like, could you sell a banana for $100,000?
No.
You know, so to say that you could do that is wrong. You know, not without decades of work or knowing the right people. Not that that's a good thing, but like, you know, like, it's kind of this. There's, I don't want to say talent, but there's effort in that. And the idea, like, comedian, like, he's literally like the cheapest things, some of the cheapest things you can think of. A banana's 20 cents at this grocery store. Duct tape. He put it in this show called Art Basel that's like, I don't know, like at least $50 just to get in to see art. And all these artists are selling things that we would kind of like make weird faces at. But he knows like the art world, the people that'll buy this, because he's already established. He's already established as an artist. He knows people are gonna like be willing to buy something with his name on it. So he literally, that's all he did. Made a sheet of paper, said duct tape a banana to the wall, and write Maurizio Catalan, the comedian, under it. And people like ate it up. It's like cryptocurrency. Like,
Yeah.
he's just making it up. But the like sort of, I have feelings about like about this. So it sold at one of those editions that's, well, at highest it was $180,000 that he sold it for. The person that bought that resold it recently for $6.2 million.
Oh my God.
He gets none of that. Which is like, you know, in this instance, most people are like, so? You know, but like, people, this is a huge thing. Like, people will sell paintings at auctions and artists don't see any of the resale. Any of it.
Do you think they should?
I do, because I'm an artist.
But
like,
it's a one-time thing. Like if you bought my house and then you sold it, should I get that sale again? You know what I mean? Because it's not like music or like the painting being up somewhere and enjoyed over and over by everyone. It's a one-to-one thing. I'm giving this to you. It's now yours to do what you want.
So, yes and no. Like, I think the fact that like that's the agreement that we have as a society right now. But I will say, like, NFTs have the ability to work into the contract. Like, if I make, like, that thing that I made of Tim, not Tim, Thomas, Kim, that I made an NFT of that, and people can go buy it, and, you know, if for whatever reason they resell it for $1 million, I get a percentage of that. So there's a royalty worked into that. And I think that's completely fair for artwork. Maybe not completely, because I have to think about it, but I want it to be fair. You know? I think, like, I put work into that, and if you're reselling my efforts, kind of, I don't know if it's without my permissions. Yeah. Like.
Yeah, but if they just burn it, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you don't.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? You can't give them, because what if they just hand it down to their grandkids? Are you gonna make them pay like capital gains taxes on it? So I get it. It'd be nice to get the money back. In a sense,
like, I'm making them money, so I got to think about it. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, but part of me is like, if my efforts are benefiting them, then it only seem right that I get a portion of that. I'm not saying like half, but like, you know, with NFTs you can control the I think like up to 10% of whatever the resale is. So it's like trading cards.
Yeah.
You know, well, not trading cards. I don't know what it's like, to be honest. Like music, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But something like that, especially so quickly, like that was, I think, during COVID when Maurizio Catalan sold his stuff, and, you know, not even 5 years later, it's reselling for I don't know the numbers, like 1,000,000% more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but yeah, overrated is kind of like a, some people might say Van Gogh's overrated, and shame on them, but
Yeah,
it's
they're swine.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
I like that.
I got another one for you, and this is
So,
on the same thing. Like, I mean, everybody has different tastes, right? I guess you could probably tell from this conversation, my taste in art, my taste in music is like, I don't mean sophisticated, like, I only want the best, but like, I like complexity in that when it's something that looks really hard, like no one else could have done it but that person, then I'm like, okay, that's talent. Whether it's even my style or not, that just seems like true skills. Whereas if I look at a painting and it looks like those ones where people just take a paintbrush and do this and they like splat, that I don't care what anybody says is overrated. When I see those paintings where I'm like, dude, I could have done this. I could have just grabbed different paint colors and went whip, 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 and it makes cool dots and splats, but like not a lot of skill there. There's individualism and creativity, but like there's not the skill there that like the guy who painted the Mona Lisa has. I mean the technical skills. So anyways, to the question, I feel like I look for that in art, whether it's painting or sculptures, and to me the really good ones are the most impressive. And so do you have a piece of art that's most impressed you? Like, what do you think the most impressive art is you've ever seen?
Oh.
And maybe it's not because of the technical skill, but just what was,
Yeah.
that thing that was most impressive to you in all your time?
So there's this weird like transition where art becomes like philosophy also, or like there's like they kind of like blend together.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're talking about, where like you kind of lose some impressiveness.
Sometimes.
I know what you're saying. Like I get that. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, because I've seen
Sometimes
some really impressive philosophical art where you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is not the most technical skill, but the message in this piece is, I see that in like Alex Gray paintings where I'm like, this is mind blowing, dude.
Remind me of Alex. Is that the guy that did the aliens artwork?
Maybe
Like the
some,
movie?
but his is no. Alex Gray.
Okay.
You write this down if you got the pen pad. His art is. It seems very much to be mostly about the human connection. Like
I think
a lot
like
of times
he paints
even
like auras also. Like
Yes.
there's like anatomy and okay,
anatomy,
yeah.
like exoskeletons of people, but like fusing together, like very like masculine versus feminine sometimes. But his art, my second favorite artist ever, but I always feel like the emotion he's putting out there, like the philosophy of it, like he tries to make it like see that nature is part of you and oneness, and like a lot of his paintings are like two-tone where it's like the beauty of like human connection and animals and life, and below it is like the corporate machine and like the things that we're trying to like we're becoming it, but we should be trying to escape it. Like a lot of his shit is like that, and I'm like, this is impressive. It's brilliant.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, man, that's a hard one. I think I'm trying to think of one that like where I don't know the history and it's just an immediate like, wow, this is nuts. And that's hard because I go like when I go to see this work, usually it's a field trip or something, whereas you got time to think when you're flying to Italy to go look at something.
Yeah.
Gosh, honestly, I went to France not too long ago, and went to the Louvre, and it was like, I mean, you could say that building's impressive, but walking around some of the like old Renaissance paintings, they're so massive.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, holy shit, man. Like, oh, there's two of these from the same artist. Like, they did both of these in their lifetime. Or even if you look at the Mona Lisa, everyone needs to just turn around when they're there. And there's a huge, massive painting just assembling the canvas for that painting. Like, it's one piece of canvas that's been, or probably several that have been stitched together. Like, but that to me is like super impressive that they're working on that. I'm trying to like answer your question directly. Sorry.
That's okay.
I think like the Sistine Chapel.
That is stunning.
It's stunning. I do know the stories behind it, and that adds to the impressiveness and the fact that like Michelangelo was like at a certain point of celebrity where he could essentially like tell the Pope to piss off. Like there's rumors of him like knocking it like a thing of paint down onto the Pope or stuff like that. Like, and gosh, I could talk about that forever. The Last Judgment. So the ceiling is impressive, but then the wall that you would face if you were like in a service or whatever. One of the exits, there's this creature above it, and it's a human with a snake wrapped around its waist and biting his junk, like, and he has donkey ears. And the face of that human is one of Michelangelo's biggest critics. So like someone who criticized Michelangelo, because he got a lot of shit for painting people naked, like Adam and Eve, before they like Michelangelo was one of the people that could read the Bible because it was in Latin or whatever. Yep. And so he's like, oh, they were naked, so I'm going to paint them naked. He probably did it because he knew it would piss a lot of people off. But
what a gangster.
Yeah, he was. I mean, that dude. When I talk about him, I'm like, don't piss an artist off, because they will, like, essentially like put you down in history as a jackass.
Yeah, they'll freeze you in time.
By a snake. Like,
literally monumentalize you in time in a way that you do not want to be.
Yeah, but you think about like even more layered than that. The dude's literally standing over a doorway. So very likely this guy walks underneath that doorway into a service, and people are like looking at him like, wait a minute.
My God.
Like, so, and he was like a cardinal or whatever, a bishop. I don't know what the things were, but like he was a popular person.
What a genius move, because he knows once he's done that, even if that guy finally catches on and looks up and like throws a fit, it's like, what can you do? You can't have this thing removed out of like the ultimate church. So now he knows he's just been trolled for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So I think Michelangelo in general is just super impressive to me. I think that, and that was also because I already talked about the Pietà, which was his artwork in general. I just love art. Like, I think there was to talk about something totally different. There's an artist who, I'm missing the connection now, but he made an installation that was at our museum, and it was this river of like little candies going through the museum. And it was so weird, because you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to step on them, I'm going to walk around it. Also, it's on the floor, and it's not like a big sculpture, so that's kind of weird. And then, if you go on a field trip, you'll see the docent likes to play this trick, and they like bend down and pick up a piece of candy and start eating it. And you're like, wait, what? I can do that? And so you're like, oh, you're allowed to take a piece of candy. It's somewhat interactive, and I forget what the connection is. I think it had something to do with like AIDS or healthcare or something. I don't know. I missed that part, but like the interactiveness of it really That was another like G move that was pretty like impressive.
Interesting.
I don't know, man. I could talk about art all day. Like,
Yeah.
it's when I start to talk about one thing, something else pops up. And
I got an impressive, it's not a piece of art, but a place of art that I should tell you about to put down your bucket list, and it'll be fun for you as a travel too.
Okay.
So this is the most impressive art I've ever seen, but also the most impressive man-made thing I've ever seen for sure. And I'll say I've not been to the pyramids yet, but this was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I went to Poland last spring, like February, I think. And
Okay.
if you go outside of Warsaw, the big city, about an hour away, I forget the name of the town. I could send it to you after, or you can just Google it. It'll come right up. There's this town that's known to have this super old salt mine, and like
I've seen this.
Yeah.
Not in person, but I think I know what you're talking about.
I didn't know where salt came from other than salt water or Salt Lake City. You know, I knew
Yeah.
knew there were mines too, like places you could dig it out of the ground, but I didn't realize what this could be at like the biggest scale. Dude, this salt mine is like, it's from like the 13th century or something like that, so it's super old.
Yeah.
And it's hundreds and hundreds of meters below the ground and miles long and wide. Like,
Yeah.
unreal.
I think didn't they have like a church in it? Like
Yes.
they carved a church out of it,
And so that is the craziest part, that like, can you see the layers here? Like, that is already crazy for them back then, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 1800s. All of these something hundreds before freaking electricity for flashlights or power tools. People are just going down with torches and pickaxes and digging tunnels and bringing salt out, right? But sometime in the middle of all of that, people got so bored and or liked art enough that they started making sculptures into the salt walls and making like full-on churches. And I walked into this one church. It's like 100 feet across, 75 feet high, 60 or 70 feet wide, and every square inch of the wall is like carved, not like shitty drawings, but like pictures of like the 12 disciples meeting at dinner, you know?
What?
And
dude,
crazy the detail, where I'm like, it was blowing my mind looking at it, and it still does, because I'm like, I don't know how the fuck these guys
with a little lamp or torch.
not a lamp, not a glass lamp like British
Yeah.
people in the 1800s, but like with one guy holding a stick with a torch on it, and they're like 500 feet below the ground, and the other guy is just picking away at rock hard salt until they have like the most beautiful looking sculpture art that I've ever seen. And like people are dying because it's like, you open up the next corridor, there's a natural gas in there, everyone blows up, you start over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have to
I was about
redo
to
all
say.
that.
Golly.
So some of this stuff was done and then redone over like 600-700 years of time.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm writing it down.
Yeah.
I saw that somewhere.
Probably on my stories last year.
That
if you
might have
follow
been.
me, Yeah.
Maybe that's probably where.
Yeah.
Nice,
But
man.
I
Okay.
knew Poland was cool, but that Poland is the coolest thing I've ever seen and experienced. Like, you know, I'm sure there's nature wonders of the world that might be as cool, but as far as man-made feats of wonder, and at that time and at that technology, just, it's literally unfathomable.
Yeah. Sorry. That like, yeah, that's totally on the list. I want to go to Poland in general. I've been here. That's been coming up in like several different either podcasts or conversations. So,
Yeah.
dude, yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Thanks. Well, if you're ever in Texas, hit me up. We'll go to a museum or something. I don't have anywhere cool to show you. Like, I could show you an okay barbecue joint. I don't.
Yeah, that'd
But-
be cool, man.
yeah.
You know, drop the kid off at mom's, and we'll go hit a museum.
Yeah, man. Let me know. Thank you again so much for doing this. Yeah. Until next time.
No problem, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you again to my patrons. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can visit patreon.com/riddlesart to see how you can support the show. This video is made available by viewers like you.